So I think we can start. Today we are going to cover the latest update for TrueConf Server, the version 5.2. This webinar will take approximately half an hour. We will be happy to answer all your questions, so feel free to ask them in chat or use the audio feedback button to ask questions in real time. I will, as usual, share my screen to display in action in real time the latest features instead of slides, because it is always much better and more fun to see the product itself instead of marketing slides. Okay, so my name is Lev Yakupov. I am the marketing guy at TrueConf, and today with me is Rudolf. Rudolf is our channel manager who works with our partners globally. So nice to see you today, Rudolf.
Hello.
Rudolf is just back from GITEX, the huge show this year, and we have other large shows coming soon. So we are going to participate in InfoComm in Thailand, in Bangkok in 3 weeks. So if you will be on InfoComm Southeast Asia, we'll be there. And of course, we will be at ISE next February. As usual, we have a booth on those events, and some other InfoComms and other expos are also coming. So please follow our news to see where we are, and we'll be happy as always to see you in person. But let's start with the webinar. I will share my screen. Okay, just a moment. So I hope you can see the slides. This is the latest version of our server, which is available for Windows platform, the version 5.2. We also released the new version for the Linux platform, which is 5.0.3. So previous release is now available for Linux. Before, it was only available for Windows, but right now our new platform with messaging support, multi-login, and ability to use multiple devices for the same user is also available for Linux installations. And we're going to shorten the distance between those two releases because our goal is to provide releases for Linux at first and Windows and other platforms later. Right now, Windows is coming further, but it will change, I hope, by the next year, and Linux will become the platform #1 for us because it is very popular and we have to follow the requests of our customers. But of course, the version for Windows will be here, no problem. We also pretty well understood that it is also a very popular platform globally. So if we have a look on the version 5.2, so please pay attention, but that right now it is only available for Windows platform. So today we're going to cover the updates for this version 5.2. The first major piece of this release is about registration process. So now it is possible to ask the visitors and participants of your TrueConf meetings for additional information. It could be obligatory fields the user has to enter before he joins the meeting, or it could be some other fields. You decide what fields. This form is totally customizable, and you have to select which fields are obligatory and which is not. So instead of the slide, let me show you how it looks like. So I have another application here. So our regular 8.1 application for macOS, that is the latest released version, and very soon we will update it for version 8.2. And the webinar about 8.2 client application release will be held in 2 weeks. So not next week, we will have a lot of conferences and traveling next week. So in 2 weeks, we'll have another webinar about clients updates. But today we're going to cover server-side infrastructure updates. So the new function for registration process is available in the personal area of every user or within our client application. You can go to the conferences, schedule conferences, and create a new conference. Just follow my mouse. We will receive the new function. I will create the public conference because it's Possible, but not very useful to create obligatory fields and registration process for closed meeting, because private conference, the closed meeting, can only be populated with your registered account, so you basically know who they are, but you usually don't know anything about guest users. So the registration process allows us to collect all information we'd like to have about guest users. So let me create a webinar about new release, for example. I'd like to have 4 people on screen and up to 300 listeners. It will happen next Monday. And I need to create some custom fields. To enable registration process, I have to tick this checkbox and create custom fields. Please pay attention that we have 2 fields which are not removable, and they are always required. So it is not possible in registration process to get rid of name field and email field. They are strongly obligatory, and if you create custom fields, that means that those 2 fields, name and email, will be presented. You are not able to remove them. It is done because we have to provide with a special link to join the meeting for every person who registered. And those links are unique. Those links can guarantee that only the registered person can participate in the meeting in the same time. No other person will be able to join using the same link simultaneously, and it allows us to see who actually participated in the event, who registered and participated, and who is not. That's why all links are unique, and that's why links are created only for specific email address. So that's why those fields are obligatory. So let's create some other fields. Very useful field is the city and country, because we always like to know from where you came from. Country, and it could be, let's say, the department. Okay, so now we created the fields, and let's make city and country required fields. We can also decide when registration process ends, because once the registration process is over, it is not possible to access the conference. So you have to decide, does it have a specific date and time in the future? Let's say once the conference is over, or it could happen automatically once the conference is ended. The conference end time is determined by the duration of the conference. Or we can close registration process when the conference started. Who is late will never be able to join the meeting. Some other things to notice is that it is possible to allow your registered users, local users of TrueConf Server or federated accounts, to join such conferences without registrations, because they are already registered and we know everything about them. So I will allow this. And another checkbox is determining, is it possible to collect registrations for seats which is more than the size of the conference. For example, I have created a conference for 300 participants, and if this checkbox is enabled, the 301st participant won't be able to register on the event. Always, we always have more registrations than actual participants, so I don't recommend to use this checkbox for regular webinar. So that's it. Let's create a webinar. Here we are, and we have scheduled it for the next Monday, webinar about new release. So let's go to the conference page of this webinar. I will create the new incognito window because I have authenticated in my regular browser. And here we are. Let's check the language. My Chrome browser is set to Russian language, so I changed it manually to English. So right now, instead of the regular countdown timer, we display sign up button. So we can sign up to receive the registration link. If we enter this page after the conference actually started, we will still need to enter all this data, all those fields. So it is not possible to join the meeting, even if it started already, if you didn't provide the required information. So I will enter all the data. and register for this event. So the SMTP server, which is specified on our server, will send me an invitation. So here we have the settings for SMTP server. Once the outgoing mail server is set up, we can check the notification email. So here we have added a special template for registration process, which is called conference registration notification. So you can write down your own text in your own language for this notification. Make sure to use special parameters inside the body of the email to allow your registered participants to receive the link. So this parameter, conf unique link, is a required parameter, so it should be presented in the email body. So let us check the link we just created. Just a moment. I think it is here. Not yet, not yet. Let's wait a little bit. Maybe it is in spam. I don't know. So it will be available shortly here. Let's wait a little bit. Anytime we can edit the details, because we remember the information about the user, and we can change the name. So let me show you. Here's our event. I can proceed to the analytics. This is the new field, the new area in the application where we can see who is registered. So we can see my registration right now. I'm a guest. I didn't join yet, and all the fields I have specified before. And most importantly, because the event is not started yet, my participation status is I never joined the conference. And we can use this field to understand if participant joined the meeting or never joined the meeting. So this is useful for special meetings where we have to collect hours or attendance to receive new knowledge or to provide some credible source of the participation. It is required in some organizations for internal educational process. And it also helps system administrators to resolve typical questions when and who joined the meeting. And now it is possible to have such information not only for system administrator, but also for the owner of the call, because this analytics area is available about every conference for every conference owner, not for moderators, but only for the owner of the call. We can see the information. And let's check another meeting. So I have, here we are. Yeah, this example is more useful. So this analytics is about the conference which is over. And we can see that some registered participants joined the meeting and some didn't join the meeting. We can access the graph to see who registered at what time. We can see the connection history. So we know who joined the meeting at what time and how long the duration of their participation was. And it is also possible to access the chat history. And for every report, for every section, we can have the table CSV file we can download and use for further processing. Let's have a look at another meeting with more data. This one, I believe. Yeah. So please pay attention that it could be more than one connection for every participant in the connection history for a specific meeting, because the user can join the meeting, then leave it for some reason. It could be disconnection or personal reasons, whatever. And if the user joins again, it will create the new string here, the new line, because every connection is only for the time the user was in the conference. If user left the conference, we didn't count that. That's why it could be many of them. And for every connection, we can see the join time and leave time. So this is also pretty useful for owners and you can check the attendance of your calls. If you have important meetings, you can always see who skipped the meeting and who paid attention to your meeting, or who didn't pay enough attention and left it there, for example. And the chat history is also available here, so we can save it for some protocol and some other things we'd like to have with our chat. Okay, where is my registration email? Let's check. Still not here. Okay.
Maybe use your own address.
Maybe it is somewhere else. I don't know. Maybe spam. Doesn't matter. So basically, that means that we receive a special link to join a meeting, and when the conference starts, you will be able to join the meeting using this link. And the important thing about this link is to make sure that only one person will be able to be inside the call in the same time. So you can distribute this personal link to many users. We are not able to limit this, but only one person at a time will be able to be inside the call. So the link will work for everybody, but if one person used the link before and is located within the call, other people with the same link won't be able to attend. So that's why the link is unique. And to monitor the registration process and to collect the information about the custom fields you have required, we have a new area, analytics area for every call. That's the new feature. So let's move further. So what else do we have? Recordings, also pretty useful, because before, if we enable the recording of the conference on the server, and this is the default approach, and because when we record the conference from the client application, we have to gain permission for every person being recorded to record them. And some users, they deny the recording process. And only the server-side recording records everybody without asking permissions. So we added the way to access server-side recordings for regular users, but not for all of them, but for owners of the call, for the hosts. So let's check here. Here we have the virtual room called meeting. And from this new analytics area, we can access conference recordings. And every conference could have multiple recordings, because when the last person left the conference, the session ends, and when the new user joins again the same conference, new session starts. And in the recording sections, we can have a record for every session when any user being presented was in this conference. Before, the customers had to ask the server administrator to provide the recording. So now we can download them manually. We can do this inside client application, or we can go to the personal area and close this page. And in the personal area, we have the same interface, the same features. So I can download and access recordings here as well. Just a moment. So we can open the recording, and that's it. So pretty simple. I'll close the VLC. Okay. Do you have any questions so far? No questions.
Seems not.
This is pretty useful. Another improvement is for recurring meetings chat sessions. Before this release, every new meeting created the read-only version of the chat. So when you leave the meeting or meeting end, the chat is being locked. So nobody was able to use it anymore. So starting from this new version, any meeting, any virtual room, or a meeting with the recurring settings, let's say every Monday or every week, and which has the ID, creates the persistent chat, which is activated automatically when you start this meeting or join this meeting again. So you will be able to see the previous conversations when your recurring meetings happen again. So it won't produce more and more read-only chats. It will reuse the chats created before, and I will try to show you this. So here we have a meeting with 8 participants. So I will connect to this conference and send some messages. Hello, let's make a delimiter for the, it will be more useful. So hello everybody. I'm alone in this call, but the chat is available for all participants and they can see my message right now, but they are not presented in the chat. If I leave this call or terminate this conference, I will have this chat available. Before it was locked, read-only mode. So now I can continue to exchange messages. So I will send hello to with some emoji. And if I create the same meeting again, so let's start this conference again. Let's pretend the Monday, today we have a meeting, Monday meeting, so it started over again. I connect to the same conference. And now I have the message which was sent to this group chat, not in real-time conference, but between them. So that's the new feature. And there is one thing to notice is that only people who joined successfully this conference will see this chat. So, for example, if you were invited to the conference but never joined it, or if you were a guest user, remote user, you will never see this chat. But if you participated in this conference, this chat will appear in the list of your chat sessions, and you will be able to reuse it. So this is the new feature with persistent group chat for the recurrent meeting. Also new one.
Lev, so the user is, after the conference, regular user, I mean, authorized. Is he kicked out first from the meeting when it's over?
Any user who successfully joined the call, because it was approved by the owner or the moderator, will see the chat. So if you spend any fraction of a second inside the conference, you will see the chat. It will be.
And you will remain as a participant like until you leave it, right?
Correct. That's right. But these chats are not available for guest users. They are only available for users of your server or users of federated servers. So for authenticated users we trust, not some remote users, of course. Okay. Another new feature is the official extension for Microsoft Outlook. So many customers asked us to provide such extension. So basically, you already seen that it is pretty easy to create a scheduled conference using our application. It's pretty simple, but many customers, they following the tradition, the regular way to do meetings is using Outlook. So we created such plugin. It's pretty easy to install. I'm not sure if we translated this to English. Let me check. Not yet. So it will be translated pretty soon. So it's not difficult to install it. I will show you how to install this plugin. This is the instruction. Sorry for the Russian language.
There were so many requests for this plugin, especially from the partners from Europe.
Yeah, it is. Actually, what we need is this link. So I will follow this link to the chat session for your reference. So I need to go to the Outlook calendar and create a new event. Let's today's Friday. Here we are. Let's create an event for 6 p.m. So I create a new event, and I need to click here and click on the button Get Add-ins. Here we are. So we are currently in the process of adding our plugin and the extension to the official Microsoft Store. It will take some time. And meanwhile, we can add this plugin manually because Outlook, all versions, 13, 16, 19, and Office 365, they allow to add manual plugins manually using special link address. Or it is also supported and it is already ready. We can distribute this extension for all users using Exchange group policies. So if you're running Exchange server, within your organization or your customer using it, so we can install plugin automatically on all workstations. I will show how it could be done for individual users. So I need to click here and add the extension from the URL. Just wait a little bit. That's it. So pretty straightforward, just 2 seconds, and the plugin is ready. So once installed, I don't need to reload the Outlook. It will work from the scratch. So I need to click here. The plugin immediately become available for all settings, for all meetings, for all emails. And once I click here, I need to connect to specific, I will show you, specific server. So here you have to specify only once, not every time, just once, the server, your local server.
Lev, just 1 second. Could you please move your video stream somewhere to the left, because it's exactly on this on this field. Thank you.
So we have to specify the server address of your local server. Plugin doesn't do the self-discovery for the server at the moment. Starting from the next version of TrueConf Server 5.3, the plugin will be distributed along with the server. So it will be available for the guest page from the web part of the server itself. But right now you have to use our instructions to install it. And this version, which is available right now, it can be used with every version of TrueConf Server. It could be 4.5, 4.7, 5.0, 5.2, doesn't matter, because it requires you to manually connect to the local server. So starting from the next version of the server, it will connect automatically just to your local server. So I need to authenticate on that server. I need to check this box, and this is important, otherwise I will be asked every time authentication, and that's it. So once authenticated, it should be done just once. Whenever I click this button, I will be able to create a conference. And to create a conference, we need to make 2 clicks. We have to select the type. Let's pretend this meeting will involve remote users, so I need to create a public conference. And that's it. I click here, new meeting, and immediately all the information about the meeting will be populated. However, we are able to change the name of the meeting, enable some other settings like recording, change the type of the conference, so let's create a role-based conference, and other things. So I will show you inside the application how does it look like. So here we are. We created a meeting which is called Scheduled TrueConf Meeting. So I will go to virtual rooms. Here we are. I have it over here. So I'm the owner because I'm authenticated in that plugin, and the type and everything is here. So let's update the details of this meeting. I will change the name. We'll use the name in Outlook in caps, TrueConf demo meeting. Doesn't matter actually, whatever. I have changed the conference type, and I have also enabled the recording. So the settings was updated, so I don't need to do anything. The plugin will communicate with our server and change all the settings. So if you close this, you can access this settings in all scheduled events in Outlook anytime and change them. We automatically synchronize the information between specific event in the Outlook and our conference. So let's have a look. Let's reload this page. Here we have the new name of the conference, the new type of the conference. So all settings are synchronized automatically. You don't need to worry about this. However, you have to understand that the current version of Outlook integration always creates virtual rooms. Because in Outlook, we can change the date, we can change the time, we can change the time zone, we can change the people who are invited. And current version doesn't support the integration with Exchange server, so it doesn't track, the TrueConf server doesn't track and doesn't synchronize lists of users and doesn't receive updates from Outlook about meetings being canceled or updated. That's why we use virtual rooms instead of conferences with specific date and time available. However, you are able to remove in our server conferences created by Outlook plugin, which is over. So we will provide, our technical support team has special tools, so you are able to clean all conferences created by your users in Outlook, which is over. It will be a default function in the next version of our server. However, right now, we can provide special tools from technical team, technical support team to achieve this task, to clean meetings created by Outlook. For individual user, it is not a problem, but you can imagine they're medium-sized company, let's say 1,000 employees, and they can create thousands of Outlook meetings in a couple of days. So it will be a mess for system administrators. So we prepared special tools to handle this. But the idea is pretty simple. So we can access the meetings we just created from Outlook event and distribute it, send it over to the people we invite. So don't need to create this meeting inside TrueConf application. So it could be done in Outlook. That's the new feature. Okay, so the link I just sent to you, and the translation for the instruction will be available shortly. Any questions so far?
Seems to be so great that there are no questions.
Okay, no problem. So another update is for group rights. We can split users of our server into the groups. This feature is pretty old. We can customize many settings for every group. And this version brings new rights for the groups. So the new rights allows administrator to, let me show you, to allow or disallow specific users of specific groups to create group conferences, share their screens, remote control desktop screen, remote screens, play PDF files, slideshows, or PowerPoint slideshows, and to send files. So before this update, all those settings were grouped together into the single option, which was labeled collaboration capabilities. So instead of the single checkbox, we now offer 5 different checkboxes. So this brings more versatile control about what users can do and what they cannot do. So this feature could be useful for multi-tenant environments because the single server could serve multiple customers, for example, and you can decide what features are available to some customers or specific groups within your server. Okay, some other updates are not so important, but I have to mention that because we added support for PIN-enabled conferences in the previous release of our server, so server version 5.0 brings support for PIN protected conferences. We added support for, let's call this special interface to enter PIN code for our desktop application and mobile application, web application, but not for SIP, incoming SIP and H323 connections. So finally, we added support for entering the PIN number for SIP and 323 devices. This is the first update. And second update in connection with SIP interoperability cases is that when you receive a call from TrueConf server on Cisco, Poly, Yearlink, whatever room endpoint you have, or it could be an MCU. So when you receive the call from TrueConf server on your SIP-enabled device, we will replace the caller ID with the conference ID. So that means when you try to call back the address who reached you, for example, you receive an invitation for TrueConf conference call on Cisco call, but you missed it for some reason, I don't know why, and you'd like to call back before the owner of the call on TrueConf server was displayed, so obviously he will be busy if you try to call back, but now we populate this field in SIP packets with information on the conference ID. So when you try to call back, you will be invited into the meeting automatically. That's how it looks like. Okay. We also enhance the security policies for new users and for authentication process. When you create users manually from the server area, you can create whatever policy you'd like to have because the administrator is in charge here and he can create whatever passwords he would like to have. However, if we have connected all of applications which use API calls, for them we can create special password requirements, and we can set specific requirements how strong password should be. And most important feature here is that I will show you here, user settings. So now it is possible to block users if they try to log in multiple times. This feature was available before, but it wasn't presented in the UI. So now you are able to see these settings, and you can select the log duration and the number of attempts the user has to fail to log in before his account will be temporarily blocked. So this is useful for different scam sessions. Maybe your guest page is available on the internet. Let me log out here. So if someone tried to log in into the personal area of your users, and let's say 10 times or 5 times, it depends on the settings you provide, unsuccessfully to this form, this account will be blocked temporarily. So it will definitely increase the security of the server. That's how it works. Before, the default settings was 10, and the default block period was 24 hours. But it was hidden inside. Now you can control those settings, or you can disable them, for example. That's it for the new version of the server. We also have some other updates coming soon. The first one is the waiting rooms. It will be available this year, which is pretty similar to the list of participants who are not able to join the call. Let me show you how it will look like. So just imagine we have not this applications, this application. So I will create a new call. Let's create a conference. So it's pretty easy to create a conference in TrueConf application. Just a couple of clicks. Here we are. Let me disconnect some users. Disconnect. Okay, that's enough. So you can see that we have a special list for users or devices being not presented in this call. They are unconnected. All people who were invited but never joined the meeting are presented here, and people who was disconnected from the call are also presented in this list, so we can call them back any moment. So just for the comfort of the host of the conference. However, with the new feature of the waiting room, this list will be added with the new section, which will be added the waiting list. So when any user joins the call, he or she will always join the waiting room. And within the waiting room, it is not possible to see and hear other participants of the call. However, every moderator and host will be notified about new connections. And with a single click of a button, all people, or just because we can perform multiple actions, all people or specific users from the waiting room would be invited into the main call. Meanwhile, they are located outside of the call. They will see a special picture saying that please wait a little bit. The moderator has been notified, and you will be invited once your request is approved. So this is pretty useful for webinars. And with the addition of the registration process I just showed you before, that allows us to totally replace popular webinar solutions, because TrueConf Server now fully supports registration process, waiting rooms, WebRTC support, mobile applications with content sharing and content being displayed, many other things. So we can use our server for webinars for up to 1,000 participants. This is very, very cool. And another new feature coming very soon, let me show you, is called, I will try to explain you. So the role-based conferences are the conferences with two roles, the speaker and the listener. And we can change roles any moment during the call. So the new type of the conference will arrive shortly. I expect in November with the minor update for TrueConf Server. And this new type of the conference will automatically make listeners, mark listeners as speakers once they enable their microphone. And most importantly, it will autofill the layout with any participants with camera enabled. So it will work like this. For example, you create the conference for 200 participants, and the size of the number of the size of the conference, let's say 16 speakers and 200 participants. So let me show you once again. So I create the role-based conference. Let's say it will be it will have 16 speakers and 110 listeners. So it should be a role-based conference. Let's create some name. Let's create it. Let's join it. Let's populate this call. Okay, so that's a role-based conference. Unless I invite manually the user onto the podium, it will never be presented in the layout, and nobody will be able to hear and see them. With the new mode, the people joining role-based conference will automatically populate the layout with their microphones disabled. However, we can only display in the layout the number of users selected during the conference creation process. So in this case, 16. But we can have more users. So let's say we have 100 participants and 16 slots, 16 spaces and the layout. So first of all, the layout will be populated with people with cameras, with their even if their microphones are disabled. And after that, any person who disables his microphone or her microphone will replace someone in the layout. So it will be voice activity detected conference with up to 1,000 participants, and you will need to select the number of slots in the layout. The default will be 16 slots in the layout and 160 listeners. So this is a pretty large conference. And there is no need to click any buttons, no need to ask requests to be presented on the podium. All you have to do is enable your mic and you will be visible for others, or disable your mic. And you could be replaced by others, not simultaneously, but if someone will start to talk. And there will be a function to pin. For example, it will be possible to pin someone. Even if his microphone is disabled, he will remain in the layout. So this is a very similar mode, default mode for many other collaboration and conferencing solutions on the market. So with this minor update, which will happen in November, the default conference mode in TrueConf will be very similar to Zoom, Webex, and other systems. And it is very important for many of our customers because for some of them, it is difficult to understand the role-based conference with different actions like get on the podium and remove from the podium. So, we will eliminate the need for such actions with the new voice activity detected mode. That's it. It was the last slide. And I will stop to share my screen. Here we are. Now I can answer the questions.
So please, you're welcome. And we start with the questions. In the meantime, I also have one question from one of the partners who was asking whether the number of users on screen is going to be raised. It was 36 and it still remains 36 as far as I know. So what do you think?
By default, the maximum number of people on screen is limited to 36. But it is a default which should suit most of the customers. If you have a regular computer which is not very old, let's say 3 to 5 years old, and it is not Celeron or some weak CPU, we can provide for you a special file which will enable on your server larger conferences, let's say 49 people on screen. So it was always available, but it creates additional requirements for endpoints, not for the server. Doesn't for server it means nothing, but for endpoints it will require additional requirements because instead of decoding, let's say 35 streams, in case of 36 people on screen, in case of 49 people on the screen, we will need to decode 48 streams. That will bring some additional requirements. But with this new mode, it doesn't matter how many people is on screen because they will change automatically. So our recommendation would be to create 16 or 25 people on screen and 100 will listen. And if they start to talk, they will present it in the layout.
That's right. And also the more you have users on screen, the smaller they usually are. Or maybe you are changing the layout and making somebody smaller or somebody larger on screen.
Yeah, it will happen automatically because in our application, if someone is talking or sharing the content, it will become larger automatically in the layout. By the way,
I see there is a question from somebody in chat. It's with the name Court, and the question is when the background will be available. Probably background means a change in the background in the client application.
Yes, this is a good question. Thank you. It is available in beta version of the application for Windows and for Mac and for Linux. This version is called 8.2.1. It is not released yet, but it is done. So you can ask your manager, Vlad or Rudolf, to provide you with the beta version. And so, hello, Guido. Yes, it is done, so not released yet. But we can
provide beta.
Yeah, no problem. So we created our own network to perform this, and it is very efficient. It actually consumes less resources than Chrome. It plays nicely with headsets. And what is most important, if you have specific case, let's say your customers are using special headsets or helmets or whatever, we can train the network to specifically recognize your environment, your special case, and the network will be improved specifically for you because we control the technology and we can learn and upgrade the network for any type of background, whatever. And the blurring is also available. It was available for more than 2 years already. We will cover this. Such features we will cover next webinar in 2 weeks because in addition to the new server, we also released the new version of the client application 8.2. There's a lot of other features, which is very cool. And I'm advise you to register them. Meanwhile, I can show you some things I'd like to share with you because they are very important. Just a minute. I'll share my screen. Let's imagine we have a large conference. Just a couple of clicks. It is a role-based. Let's do it again. All on screen. Yep. So we have a large conference. Usually when we have a conference, it is useful to get back to the chat session, conversation we have with the other users not presented in the call. So to achieve this, we can use special shortcuts. Very few users knows about this, but I strongly recommend to learn them, because if I press Control+1, I go to the address book. If I press Control and 2, I go to the conference set scheduler. If I press Control+3, I go to the chat session. And this particular shortcut is very useful. So anytime when you are located in the call, you can press Control+3 and go directly to the chat session. And you can hit here, return to the conference to go back from the chat to the conference. So it's like different sessions. In conference, we have conversation with people within the conference. And here we have conversations with all other users. And Control+4 opens call history. So this is very useful. And another thing is to use combinations with Alt modification key. So if I press Alt1, we select the corner layout. If I press Alt2, we create the layout with a larger screen on top. If I press Alt3, we create overlay layout. It is useful when we have less people on screen and sharing the content, for example. And if we press Alt+4, we go to the left layout where the large screen is being presented on the left. So the default is the overlay version, and we can change them easily with those shortcuts. And there are many other shortcuts, like to enable and disable your camera or microphone, or change cameras like a carousel. So we can press the single button to change all the cameras. And I'm advise you to go there in the settings, hotkeys, and play with them. They're pretty useful.
That sounds cool. On the Mac, it's instead of control, it's command.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it. Let's see you in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, I'd like to add that in the beginning of November, if you are connected from the Asia, you will have a chance to meet us in person on InfoCom in Bangkok from 2nd to 4th of November. We will be there in our booth in the main hall. And please have a nice Friday, and that's it.
Thank you for
very
joining.
much.
Thank you, Lev. That was really
Thank you,
interesting.
Rodolfo.
And everyone have a great weekend ahead. Goodbye for now.
Yes. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.